Right, let's get straight into this. Welcome, focused learners, to a high-energy masterclass unpacking exactly how Cambridge examiners award and deduct marks for one of the most notoriously tricky topics in the entire syllabus, adjustments to draft financial statements, specifically focusing on inventory valuation. Now, if you have ever walked out of an exam hall feeling absolutely confident, only to get your paper back and wonder where on earth all your marks went, you are exactly in the right place. Today, I am putting on my elite examiner's lens, and we are going to dissect these questions together. We're going to master your time allocation, and we're going to deploy the critical thinking strategies that separate average, middle-of-the-road responses from top-tier, flawless, full-mark answers. We are looking specifically at Cambridge AS and A-Level Accounting 9706, and I'm going to show you exactly how the curriculum architects build these questions to test your limits. So, get ready, because we are going deep.
I want you to just take a second and really think about this number. 15%. That is massive. Adjustments to draft financial statements, and specifically the really complex nuances of inventory valuation, accounts for approximately 15% of your total marks in Paper 2. This isn't just a minor subtopic that you can afford to gloss over or cram the night before. This is a high-stakes chunk of your final grade. Literally, this is the difference between an A and a B, or a B and a C. It's the hinge on which your entire Paper 2 performance can swing. Examiners know this is a heavy hitter, so they intentionally design these questions to be multi-layered. They want to see if you actually understand the mechanics of the accounting cycle or if you're just regurgitating formulas. Mastering this single topic is an absolute non-negotiable must if you're aiming for those top-tier marking bands. You have to treat this 15% with the respect it commands.
Okay, so here is our structural blueprint for today's explainer. First up, we'll cover core principles. Second, we're diving into the method mark strategy. Third, we'll look at examiner warnings. And finally, reaching top-tier marks.
Let's jump right into Section 1, Core Principles, Beyond Superficial Breadth. Now, when you're dealing with inventory valuation adjustments, I know it is incredibly tempting to just memorize a list of theoretical rules. You memorize lower of cost and net realizable value, and you just hope that's enough to get you through. But the Cambridge Assessment Framework is testing for something way deeper than that. The syllabus emphatically states that top-performing students exhibit a connected, conceptual understanding that they can transfer to totally unfamiliar contexts. To really understand this, let's imagine two typical students. We'll call them Alex and Sam. Alex is highly technical, right? Excels at formulas, knows every single fact, but completely freezes up when asked for an open-ended evaluation. Then you have Sam. Sam is a creative thinker, strong at building arguments, but really struggles with structural precision and strict exam timing. Cambridge examiners are setting traps for both of them. They are intentionally going to give you a scenario you have never seen before, like a warehouse flood that damaged half the inventory, or a sudden change in import tariffs affecting manufacturing costs. They prioritize analytical depth over superficial breadth. They want to see logical, structured reasoning and evidence-based analysis. If Alex just states a fact about inventory valuation without connecting it to the specific constraints of the prompt, or if Sam writes a beautiful essay that lacks technical accounting structure, they are both leaving massive points on the table. You need to be the perfect hybrid of both.
Which brings us perfectly to our next phase, Section 2, the Method Mark Strategy, Deconstruct to Present.
Okay, we need to shift into a highly procedural mindset right now. In those complex, high-tariff questions, I'm talking about those 9 to 15 mark beasts, the final numerical answer is only a tiny fraction of the battle. Mastering this exact 6-step framework is absolutely crucial to securing your method marks. If you mess up a calculation early on, this framework is what saves your grade because the examiner can follow your logic. Step 1. Deconstructs the question. Before you even touch a calculator, you isolate the command words. Are they asking you to explain, or to what extent? Step 2. Extract. Pull the relevant data from the stimulus materials. You're separating the noise from the necessary numbers in those massive text blocks. Step 3. Select the correct analytical framework. Are we adjusting cost, or are we calculating net realizable value? Step 4. Execute with clear notation. This is where Alex usually shines, but remember, the examiner needs to see your workings clearly. Step 5. Verify. Check your results for reasonableness. If your revised inventory value doubles the company's gross profit in a declining market, something is wrong. Catch it. And Step 6. Present it. Use the correct, formal terminology. This 6-step flow is your safety net. Practice it until it becomes muscle memory.
Let's pivot to Section 3, Examiner Warnings, where candidates bleed marks. All right, this is the highly anticipated segment drawn straight from the principal examiner reports. I'm going to act as your elite examiner right now and highlight the exact places where candidates absolutely bleed marks. But Actually, really quickly, before we look at these three traps and tackle the hardest part of our analysis today, I need to pause our session for a second. If you want to consistently crush your Cambridge exams, you need consistent high-level strategy. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button for the channel Ace the Exams IGCSE O and A levels. That's at acetheexam_IGCSE. And make sure you enable all notifications. Ring that bell. We drop weekly Cambridge breakthrough strategies just like this, and you do not want to miss them. Okay, back to the examiner's desk. Trap number 1, vague answers. Candidates often provide these broad, sweeping theoretical statements about inventory adjustments that lack any specific details tied to the data. You can't just say, inventory should be valued correctly. You have to say why and how. Trap number 2, forgetting strict format conventions. Accounting is a professional skill. Examiners expect proper headings, appropriate formats, and clear annotations. Sam usually loses marks here because Sam's layout can be a mess. If the examiner can't read your financial statement, your marks will reflect that. Trap number 3, answers that ignore the provided context. If a company is a manufacturing business versus a retail business, your analysis of their work-in-progress inventory must reflect that specific reality. Do not give a generic answer to a highly specific scenario.
And listen, we absolutely cannot talk about examiner warnings without discussing the terminology trap. When you read through the principal examiner reports, they reveal a massive, recurring flaw year after year. Candidates consistently confuse key accounting terminology, or they just assume the examiner knows what they mean. The solution here is simple, but it requires rigor. Always explicitly define your accounting terms before using them in extended responses. If you were discussing net realizable value versus cost, define what those mean in the context of your specific answer before you build your argument around them. Net realizable value is the estimated selling price in the ordinary course of business, less the estimated costs of completion and the estimated costs necessary to make the sale. Write that out. It proves to the examiner that you have a rock-solid grasp of Assessment Objective 1, knowledge and understanding. Don't leave it to guesswork. Define it, then apply it.
Let's elevate our game now. Section 4, reaching top-tier marks through critical analysis.
At this point, we are moving way beyond the basic assessment objectives and stepping into the territory of evaluative thinking, Assessment Objective 3. We need to deeply contrast the anatomy of command words. Look at this descriptive versus evaluative comparison. On the left, a descriptive approach. This is your average student who sees the word inventory and just writes down everything they've ever memorized, hoping something sticks. They'll explain what inventory is, but they won't answer the prompt. On the right, the evaluative approach. This is the top-tier candidate. When a command word says analyze, it means break it down into parts and show how they relate. But when it says evaluate, or to what extent, that is a totally different ballgame. Higher-order assessment objectives demand that you evaluate alternatives, compare approaches, and make justified recommendations. A true comparative analysis requires identifying both similarities and differences. You need to be using comparative connectives like whereas, conversely, or on the other hand. And you must support every single claim with hard data extracted from the text. That is how you unlock the highest marking bands. So, let's put this into practice with an interactive visual workshop mindset. Imagine I just put a massively complex data table on the screen in front of you, a messy draft financial statement with 3 paragraphs of notes about damaged stock. I hit a 60-second countdown timer. What do? You execute step 1, deconstruct. This is where you deploy the 3-step question scan. First, you scan for the command word. Are they asking you to calculate or advise? Second, you scan for the content knowledge required. In this case, IAS 2 inventory valuation rules. Third, you scan for the hidden constraints. Does the prompt say based on the information provided? If so, you better use their data. Break the prompt down into logical steps. Identify exactly what information is given, identify what is missing, and isolate those constraints before you even think about picking up your pen.
Step 2 is solve. Once you've mapped out the logic, you systematically execute the calculations. But here is the secret to getting every single method mark. You must maintain tight, evidence-based reasoning. This is all about the paragraph balance formula. You state your point, you back it up with a calculation, and you explain the impact on the draft financial statements. Now think about what happens when you hit a major roadblock. Say you're drafting your response, and suddenly your balance sheet isn't balancing, or you realize you applied the wrong valuation to a batch of inventory. Average students panic, cross everything out, and ruin their timing. Elite candidates use a cognitive strategy to get unstuck. They pause, they check their numbers for reasonableness. If your inventory adjustment results in a profit margin that completely defies standard industry logic, you've made an arithmetic error. You spot the flaw, you cleanly annotate the correction, and you keep moving. The examiner loves seeing a student who can self-correct on the page.
And finally, step 3, evaluate. This is the crown jewel of your response, the absolute peak of the marking scheme. True evaluation requires you to actually question the assumptions embedded in the prompt. If the prompt suggests writing off all damaged inventory, you need to consider different perspectives. What is the short-term impact of that massive write-off on this year's profit? What is the long-term impact on the financial health and the perception of the shareholders? You have to synthesize these different angles. You must draw conclusions about the relative importance of these competing factors. And ultimately, you can't just sit on the fence. You have to make a firm, justified recommendation that is anchored in rock-solid, irrefutable evidence from the data provided. That is what an examiner is looking for when they award top marks for evaluation.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Retaining all of this, the calculations, the definitions, the evaluative frameworks, under the extreme pressure of a timed exam is incredibly tough. So our source material offers a powerful, practical memory hack. Create an acronym for the specific factors affecting these inventory valuation adjustments. Whether it's the strict rules of lower of cost or net realizable value, the specific criteria for obsolescence, or the exact steps to adjust the draft statements, synthesizing all that complex theoretical foundation into a simple, memorable acronym is a lifesaver. It ensures that when your brain starts to fog up and the clock is relentlessly ticking down, you won't blank out. You just write your acronym at the top of the page, and it acts as your personal roadmap to getting the job done.
So as we wrap up this masterclass, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. I want you to go look honestly at your past papers. Look at the marks you got. Ask yourself, are your answers purely descriptive? Are you just listing facts like Alex sometimes does? Or are you consistently deconstructing the prompt, solving systematically, and evaluating deeply to secure every single possible method mark? Remember our 3 core pillars today: the 3-step question scan, the paragraph balance formula, and the last 5 minutes review checklist to verify your logic. If you want to transform your grades, you have to transform your strategy. And listen, crushing Cambridge exams requires consistent high-level strategy week after week. So do exactly this right now. Hit the subscribe button for Ace the Exam's IGCSE O&A levels, that's at acetheexam_IGCSE, turn on the notification bell for future exam hacks, and leave a comment down below right now with your target grade. Put it out there, commit to it, and let's get to work. I'll see you in the next explainer.